Welcome to the next episode of Our Family Stories, a podcast based on the family stories collected by Global Peace Women. This episode, we will be talking about silent surfers. We hope you enjoy.
Here we go. Okay. So welcome back. Welcome back to Our Family Stories. This is a podcast by Global Peace Women that hopes to share the stories about family that warms our hearts and remind us that it is the heart of peace. When I hear and read these stories, my natural conclusion is, wow, peace really does begin in the home. Family really is the school of love and the cornerstone of a peaceful world. So since 2016, Global Peace Women has been curating family stories from around the world. And they're all different, their cultural, national, religious, even familial differences. But honestly, when I hear them, each of them always hits home for me. So, of course, not all the family stories are inspiring. We just shared a couple stories with sad endings, but that's life, right? And then sometimes in that struggle, in that loss, and in that pain, the power of love, the power of family comes through, and it makes us realize that maybe our journey towards happiness is not actually defined only in this moment or even in this generation. It's one of my recent thinkings, but that it's investing in something better. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but it might happen next generation, and that's something we're willing to invest in. So today we have some great guests with us. I'm gonna open the floor. Everyone can introduce themselves quickly, and then we'll jump right into our theme. So we'll start with Collette. Honor, please introduce yourself.
Okay, I am Collette Caprera. Basically, I write and edit now. My educational background was English literature and philosophy, but nobody's hiring philosophers. So I write and I edit and I paint. And a lot of my stories, because a lot of my heart, I write for a couple of local publications on the community, but for 30 years, I've been working with someone named Bob Woodson. He works to boost what is working in inner cities. And I was just a documenter, of the people that we met and the people we tried to support in the efforts. So a lot of my stories of heart and service are linked to that kind of part of our family. David, my husband, also worked for Bob, so it is family in a way, but it's not our nuclear family. So that's me.
Thank you. Next on my screen is Shraddha. So Shraddha, you can go next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shraddha, and I work with Global Peace Women right now, sharing the stories and work that they've been putting on and doing across the world. And I'm very excited to be a part of this whole season that we'll be having. And I'm excited to hear all the stories.
Anu?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Namaste. This is Anu Lama, and I have been working with Global Peace Women for more than a year now. And currently, I am working as an independent writer, and I really like writing for Global Peace Women because every time there is a new story about the incredible works that different women leaders from many countries that are doing and contributing in their own little ways in making the society a bit better. And so it's really nice to write about them and their stories of change. And also writing about the family stories is really nice. It's like getting to know them without actually meeting them. So so it's nice. The experience has been nice. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm Hanako. I also write. I guess Anu and I are partners in crime. We write for Global Peace Women. I think I've been thinking, how do I introduce myself? I'll introduce what I'm most proud of. So I'm most proud of my 4 kids, even though they're works in the making and we look like a hot mess sometimes. But Yes, I'm a mom of 4, 3 boys and 1 girl. That's me. So welcome, everyone. Our first theme is going to be something that Collette doesn't even remember introducing to us, but it's the term silent servers. I think was it yesterday, right? International Women's Day. And I remember poking my head in a couple different conferences and events. And, it's not relegated solely to the world of women, but I think silent servers often does aptly describe a lot of what we do. Although I say, there are many other people who are not women who also are silent servers. But there are many of those in our family, but also around us. People who give so much, help those around them in so many ways that can't be measured. There's no fanfare, there's no recognition. Some of them may pass on and not even get a nod. But what they left in the hearts of those that they've touched, those that they've served is, like I said, immeasurable. So today we want to shine some light their way so that we can give them a hat tip. And we'll start by, I'll share a simple video. I guess today is Nepal Day. This movie, this story is from Nepal. It's a short one, but about a minute long. But let's take a look, and then in that it can help us start our sharing. So give me a moment. Thought I pulled it up. I know, I think you've seen this one before. You like it. You liked it when it came out. That was it. Any reactions?
That was
Mm-hmm.
that was short, but it made me think about what my parents did, my mother, my father did. So I was thinking about that, and I think it is because the video had prompt of father, so I also inclined. I was thinking about my father, and then also my mother as well. So both of them, I actually thought about both of them, and also in general, I think in Nepal, most of the parents in our demographic now, I think more are educated. But when we were little, as we were growing up, I think many of my friends and the demographic, mostly they are not educated. So, so the people of my father's age, they put a lot of importance on education. So they they don't want their child to do anything, they just want them to study. So because they couldn't study, so they have prioritized education so much. So I was also thinking about that because you can see in Nepal, like if you go to the village areas, the parents would be working so hard and they wouldn't they would be like, okay, you just read, even in city areas. You do not need to do anything. You just read. And fulfilling their every demand, like books or whatever they need, fulfilling it. You just have one job, and that is to read. So I was thinking about that at the back of my mind. So it was good reflection. And I was also thinking about my father, who put on so much information, so much importance on education. So, and I did not work until after college. So I think it is because of my parents, and they give so much importance to education and fulfilled all of my wishes. So I definitely thought of that.
Yeah, that picture at the end says it all, right?
Right. I was going to say that was the most powerful thing. You could see the father's pride, you know. And actually from his stance and everything, you see him as a rooted tree or something, like real point of stability and strength. You could see it. And the son was still pretty young, kind of barely filling his jacket out there, but a powerful picture. And for me, my both parents were just number one supporters of me, and they never tried to direct anything. And I did a lot of, I grew up in a really small town in upstate New York and did murals to earn money. And then I would travel, and that must have been scary for them. I would go to Europe all alone hitching or with a friend. And I went to school in England. That's when that started. I took a year abroad on nothing. We didn't have a lot of money, but they supported everything I did always. And, down to the littlest thing, my dad was a guard. He had a uniform, and my mom would send his shirts out. So they were just perfectly done. They would come back folded up, and they would have a shirt cardboard that they were folded around. And I didn't have a lot of drawing material. I went, whoa, look at these. So I would go through his drawer and take out all those shirt cardboards, and these carefully laundered shirts are like jumbled in his drawer. But no one ever, they praised my drawings and stuff. They didn't complain about the shirts. So I don't know, I think about that. Sometimes it's not heroic, it's the small things where there are moments that's kind of a sacrifice, or just reprioritizing what you would want to do or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot, maybe not quite midlife crisis, but thinking about, where's the end game. And I think all of us can relate. We're ladies, and we like stories. The story has a beginning, a middle, and the end. And if you see how I watch movies and read books, I read the end after I read the intro, and then I read the middle after I know what's next. So life is very frustrating in that way. It won't tell you the end. Because I'm contemplating that. But watching this, and also, thinking about the silent server theme, makes me realize, as a parent, this reprioritization that you're talking about, Collette, you kind of put the end of your story in the next generation. I'm not looking for necessarily my happy ending anymore. I'm just looking for better for the next generation. So when I know you talk about, the generation that didn't have education, just pouring everything out to the next generation, it speaks to me. I'm not looking for now, I'm looking for 10, 20, 30. I won't even see it, maybe, but that's okay, because that's what matters most now.
And I think some of that comes just from the heart of a parent. You might never make that decision to orientate yourself for the future generation, but you can't help it. If there's one bit of food, the mother wants to give it to the child first. You don't think about it. It's just, it's spontaneous parental heart, which is what is constant.
Yeah. Shraddha, anything?
I was actually thinking for the silent server part, similar to Anu, looking at watching the video, immediately made me think of my dad as well because, father figure right there. My dad was a silent server his entire life in my household. It would be my mom who's more expressive and do things that you could see most of the time in front of you, whereas my dad was the one who would do things behind the scenes. And as a child, I wouldn't know growing up, oh, Baba, which is what I call my dad, like Baba did this for you. And my mom would be the one to tell me, but I wouldn't know. And so the whole time growing up, I would think, oh, my mom was the extremely nice one, whereas my dad was the strict one. But in reality, it was actually both. It was just as a child, I wasn't able to understand. But now, growing up, seeing the things that he does, it makes me wonder maybe this is also what he did before, but I just couldn't see it because I was little. And so it just made me think about my dad too. And something that resonated with Collette was when you talked about clothes. So I moved here to the US at a very, very young age. But prior to that, I was in Nepal with my mom. And I remember my mom telling me the story how she told my dad once over the phone call, like the occasional phone calls they had, that it was starting to get really cold. And so after hearing about that, my dad somehow managed to ship a parcel, this red jacket, this red bulky jacket, all the way from Seattle, Washington to Nepal. And funny thing is, we still have that jacket.
Wow.
And my brother also wore it when he played in the snow. It was just that durable and that bulky. And for some reason, that red jacket has always like stayed with us while I was growing up, while my brother was growing up. And I'm sure it's somewhere in the back of our closets. But it just made me think about how it's like those small little acts that really make up the huge difference. And again, I didn't know about this as a child, but growing up and I hear these stories that my mom shares, that makes me a bit more appreciative of my dad than I should have been. But just a small thought.
It's a great thought. Hanako, I don't want to take us off track, but
Go for it.
if we're keeping a list of possible topics in the future, what Shraddha is saying, if we shared about an item of clothing that has meaning that no one would know until you tell it, that would, in the bottom of my dresser upstairs, I never throw anything out. So I have our son's, who's 33, his Cub Scout shirt from when he was 6. But my mom, both parents worked 2 jobs, and we didn't think it was for us. We just took it for granted that they worked 2. And one of hers was a banquet waitress. And I did one day serve with her, tried it. I would never do it again. And she took my load, but these were like heavy trays with dinners, with heavy plates, and so in the bottom of my dresser drawer is her apron from those days. And she passed away 33 years ago. But I would love to hear people talk about an item like that. And that's linked into silent server too, because it looked just like a job that they were doing, but it was for ME and my brothers and sisters that was happening, Yeah.
That's so sweet. I think Shraddha, that could be one of such a good family stories, and especially the item of clothing as well, as Collette shared. It's so sweet.
Collette, you talk about the JOB for ME. I think for people, I don't know, I'm making a broad generous. For me, okay, for me, without that deeper meaning for something, it's really hard to do things. But when I have someone, something, even an ideal or faraway, hope that I'm investing in, then the small, mundane, even the menial things become meaningful, like
Yeah.
dishes become meaningful, or I hate it. I used to hate shopping, even for groceries, but now I get to think about what I put in my kids, or they need shoes, okay. And because it's now for someone, it becomes joyful.
Yeah.
So yes, serving has personal benefits too. I wanted to, I was hoping not to, but we'll bring up when all of you were talking about parents and their service. There's an image, I should have pulled it. I didn't think I was going to share it, but I was looking through Twitter, the online Twitter, not the tenement Twitter. And there was a photo, everyone's doing Stand By Ukraine these days, and there's a photo, 3 kids on the other side of a train window, hands on the window, and dad's standing on the platform with his hand out, touching the kids. Daddy's staying to fight. I think what we're talking about here is captured in that image, right? Parents, or even not parents, right? The current generation, we're willing to give so much so that there's more, so that there's better. And then I thought about it and I was like, wow, that's human progress, right? That's the heart of human progress. Yes, we have the heroes that we talk about in the books that my kids read, but then they're the ones, the small ones, the everyday people. But we're driven by something, some thought of better. And what do? We'll stay back and we'll fight. No one may know our names. No one will write about us. Or maybe, we'll be a picture on Twitter, but we don't know his name. We don't know his kids' names. But it speaks to us because it reminds us that that's where each of us are in this human journey together. But it takes that attitude of service, even if it's a quiet one, an unknown one. Right? I talked about it.
Yeah, that is true. We are doing better, I think, the human race.
And I think it's because individuals, right? As well as, like, I guess there is probably critical mass needed of individuals, but everyone has something. Before we close out this segment, I wanted to ask if there are other silent servers that we want to give a little shout out to. We have our parents. Are there other people who you've run across in your life or in your days that you would like to recognize for a service that has been unrecognized?
Well, all of the people I documented for Bob Woodson in the Woodson Center are exactly that. In fact, Bob's group exists to recognize these silent servers and bring resources to what they do, because he said the very qualities that make them effective make them invisible to other people because they're not touting themselves, not marketing, they're just going where there's needs, and incredible risk and sacrifice that I've seen. There was one guy named Leon Watkins from LA. He recently, he passed away a few years ago, but he couldn't stand the gang warfare. And he knew that this one leader of the East Side Crips was controlling all these, everybody was following him. And he figured if he could make him change somehow, that's the fulcrum point to bring peace. So in those old days, it was the 70s, he mimeographed flyers that said, I want to see Quake. That was his gang name, the kid's gang name. Quake, I want to talk with you. And he left a phone number, but he didn't even have an office. The phone number ran in a phone booth. Probably never even saw a phone booth, but And he sat by it, in the alley. And one day, Quake came and said, I hear you want to talk to me. What do you want to talk about? And he said, oh, your life. And he was a man of faith, and they sat on 2 garbage cans and they talked for hours. And that was the beginning. These kids could be like really vicious gang leaders and members, but they also can detect authentic care. And he knew that Leon cared, and that was the beginning of a big transformation for him and for everybody. He had his credibility, his street cred, and his leadership changed a lot of kids too. It was like a miracle. You wouldn't think it could happen. It was like a Hallmark movie or something, and it's happened again and again and again with different people. Silent heroes.
Yeah, I always wonder where they get like the courage, or I don't even know if it's ingenuity. It's like, I gotta do something. I'll do something.
Well, they're also where the rubber hits the road. He was, Bob, again, he took over my brain, I think 30 years ago, but one of his sayings is the people who can make a difference come from the same geographic and spiritual zip code, the cultural zip code of the people they work with. So they understand it firsthand. And a lot of them were motivated by faith, actually, and heart, just plain heart. There was no question he had to stop the killing.
I guess that's it, right? There's no question. You're in that place. Do or don't. It's in your hands.
Right.
Yeah, and I think to add that this story is so incredible, it kind of reminded me another story. When I was doing my project, I heard a story. I mean, I met a person who was working to track down the human traffickers at the Nepal's border to India. So what they have is very informal mothers group. So where they actually monitor suspicious activities, and if they actually, I'm at a loss of words. What is the word? But if they, what is the word translation?
There's like a list of signs, right? Yeah, right. She won't look at you, or
Yeah. So they look at that, and they have been doing pretty good job, because they have been able to identify women and girls, especially younger girls, who were on the journey to be trafficked to India, but then because they were so observant, they could stop it and intervene. So that mothers group are pretty good silent servers, I think, in here.
And it takes someone like them again, or they wouldn't pick up, someone whose credentials are from a diploma or something, don't have that kind of sensitivity that these women can pick up right away. They know what they're looking at. It's like a sixth sense, another sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is, yes, the sixth sense of mothers is incredible, because they can identify, and they've saved so many women and girls. So it's very informal, and they have like a network, and they all work like spies, and it is so nice to hear about them.
Right. What is it? Homegrown heroes, or homegrown leadership, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, I think they're not given as spotlight as they should have been, because I think they are doing some very incredible work protecting girls from being trafficked. So.
I wonder if these silent servers they'd probably be embarrassed if they got hide. A lot of the gratification comes from the unseen part.
But on the other hand, because their life is their mission for a lot of people. To be able to broaden what you do or broaden the impact of what you do would be important too.
True. And then that's where formalizing or organizing becomes important. You can duplicate and expand the important work. You're right. And it sounds like that's what Bob Whitson does, kind of take something that's been very organic in the field and then give it structure so that it can get more done. I think that's what we're trying to do at GPW, recognizing that every woman has this need or want, desire, drive to do something, and then provide platforms, tools to be able to allow her to do the work she wants to do. Okay, so I'm going to transition to the next part, but anyone want to give some closing thoughts on this silent server piece before we move to surrogate families?
I think this was a really good section or part, because and topic as well. I'm just thinking so many things on the back of my head. So from my family to society at large. So definitely a lot more reflection and a lot more appreciation.
Right, I'm going to be looking around it with new lenses today.
Yeah, and even the smallest contribution that people do. And I just one image came to my mind when I was off to my village. So it's not village, but into a village a year back. I think the children could also be the silent servants for their parents because they have, and the parents, they were doing some work in the field, and then the children, they carried their copies and homework, and they were doing their homework. There were such little kids, and they were doing their homework in the sides, and then they would run to their parents and then carry something they would carry, and then put it back some other place that they were meant to put. So I was thinking of that image came to my mind as like, oh, children can also be silent servers to the parents and not just parents to the children.
The other day I was having a little bit of a challenge, and then my son comes in, and my second son, and he goes, "Hey mom, how are you doing?" And I sigh, and then he goes, "I thought so." And he put a cup of coffee next to me, and he goes, "I made you this." And I was like, "Oh goodness." So you're right, Anu. Children have a lot of power too. Collette, maybe you can close this part out.
No, before we started, we did a lot of sharing and about support and gifts and stuff, different literature that we've read that has the same message. And the coffee brings it, coffee might have given you energy, but what really gave you comfort and strength from that was the heart of your son. So it's not physical things, but how we surround each other with care and express that in really subtle, silent ways to each other.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. Make sure to subscribe and tune in next time.